Hello, everybody, and welcome to Watercolor Wednesdays. It's a nice chilly day again in Iowa, and after a extremely warm day yesterday that turned into a cold day. So today, figures again. This time we're going to deal with figures in groups. We had a single figure last time, and we're going to bring the figures a little more front and center and a little bit more of a feature, so that it's about the figures walking in this place. I know it's a very dense, complicated background, but that's I almost kind of like that because we're going to have to force ourselves to reduce that so that the figures stay in focus. Hi, Carol. Hi, Cindy. I'm sure it probably looks a little intimidating and intimidates me too, so I could screw it up. We'll see. Hi, Rebecca. So the thing to do when you've got a group of figures like this, I wanted to, Vicky, hello. I wanted to point out a few things about groups of figures. I think you can see it here. But just about the head height of all the figures is just about the same, even those very, very, very distant ones back there. Variations in height of people, but you can see it maybe here. Here's a group. They're almost head height. Unless you are here again, even the girl on the bicycle, everybody's heads are pretty much in the same place. So that's something to work with and, allow some minor variation to account for the height of the person. Here's, again, people, head height. This is a very short woman and this cute little girl. Notice that. The size of the adult head and the size of the child's head is virtually the same. Hi, Judy. But the size of the body is significantly different. So that's just to warn us to try not to draw our heads too big because then they'll wind up looking like kids. So the original composition on this was a horizontal one. See if I can pull it up a little further. I think it would work as a horizontal composition too, but the figures would be a little less part of the focus. But since we want to do figures, this is how I'm going to be. So how to sort this out? First off, as always, such as I always do, what are my key verticals? What are my key horizontals? Oops. Slight slant on that. I'm going to just roughly indicate that the shadow is going to go not quite to the halfway mark. I'm going to paint it, but I'm just going to generally indicate that's where it's going. This is what's that? 1, 2, almost a third. Where that colonnade of trees is. This comes to about 1, 2, about a quarter. The bottom of the trees is about a quarter of the page. That helps me find that this line where it starts to go up the stairs there is going to be about here. I'm going to draw these darker so you can see them later. That's the top of it. Below that slightly is the area where the steps are, and I may have to adjust this. The flat area before the steps, this only comes to about there. There is a slight lean on that. And the Versailles building will come to about there. The top of the steps, I find that is a little bit above where this is. Yeah. Maybe even a bit higher. Let's see. There is a top area. The second story is not quite as tall. Hello, Lisa. Hi, Becky. This general main area here it's all rectangles and verticals. I'm not going to draw on all the windows yet. I might indicate where the two architectural details are. We're going to leave out that crane, which is further back. Keeping that general is going to be the order of the day. Maybe a little higher in this. Now, the figures. That's important. If you can visualize a rectangle around the two girls here, and just where does that come? Their head comes to the steps. I think I got my steps a little bit. Hi, Charles. Yeah. Okay, the steps comes a little bit below the Alrighty then. There's that. Then just a little bit below that is the grassy area, which that was about, I don't know, 12, 15 feet tall, actually, which means the second set of steps will be about to here. Yeah, that looks better. And the flat area leading up to this is there. Now, if I see my rectangle, it's going to be the two girls are going to fall within here. Maybe a little further down. It's about 2 to 1, yeah. Now hi Eric, there are many, well, I shouldn't say a million. There are many other ways you could do this. Let's put the trees in. The fountain there, I'm going to see a shallow triangle. And that again we're going to make happen when we paint. You'll see, because it's very important in a thing like this to make sure that the background stays in the background. So, a little bit of space between them. So, blue dress girl falls in here, red dress girl falls in here. Their dresses end at about slightly above where the shadow will be, so that helps me, meaning their legs will come down here. But, Lucy, hello, how are you doing? I'm going to go to this, which is a bit more of a close-up, and I hope you can see what I've done. When I come across a complex figure, I try to find ordinary geometric shapes. So the first thing I do is where are the heads? The one head is a little above the other. It's above the line of where the grass is going to start. So, well, her head, it's about where that starts, isn't it? So it's about here. Now the other thing that's important, there's a line through these girls. Figures that are in motion, you want to get, if possible, something of the gesture of their walking. There's a slightly off vertical line going through this girl and a more or less vertical line here. So that's just a pencil in a light axis that I can use to help me find that. So maybe the head, I see it as a jelly bean shape for blue dress girl, and as a a pentagon for red dress girl. The other thing that's nice is she's slightly turning towards the other girl, carrying on a conversation. Underneath her is a pentagon. So that's more of that. Okay, so I've got two. Well, let's put the head over here, John. You get the head is on her shoulder like it was a second head. Duh. And I will create the form. Second pentagon here, or maybe a Heinz 57 label kind of thing. Hip is slightly kiltered on the second one. And then, yeah, something like that. And then dress comes down. Terrible, terrible proportions. I just draw it, compare to what you actually have, and then correct your proportions. So I'm going to pencil this in a little better, darker bag before we paint, so you can see that. This girl, a little more broad shoulder than, and I saw a kind of a bell shape. Where the arms, caused by the arms and the akimbo there. Another pentagon, but this time a very shallow bag out here. Hand on her phone. Everybody has their phone. So, dress, feet. Now at this point, I think it's going to be a little bit more. Oh, another thing with the feet. Notice between her feet, there's an angle here, but this is flat. So look for dumb little things like that. So back to our main figures. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. So a little bit of her neck, shoulder, back. Arm, hand, forearm, so elbows, compare elbows. Yeah, they're about the same place. Sometimes if you can see the shape in between, if that's helpful, use that. the nice swish of that dress. It's nice to have a dress as opposed to pants, because then it's harder to differentiate your male figures from your female figures. A nice round shoulder. So I can start taking away some of the lines if I feel like they're about where I want them. This girl turns slightly towards the other. Some bit more of her neck showing before we go to the shoulders. I think I want to get that long bag in there because that's gonna she, in a way, was a little harder to draw, at least to me, because we're not seeing as much anatomy in motion as we are with this young lady. So I think I've got her, yeah, a little too broad-shouldered now that I look at it. And her hand is more casual. Might have her head a little, yeah, here we go. I think I've got this girl's head too big. I'll just, her elbow is disguised by the dress a bit. And I think I'm starting to get my proportions right. I think I've made her a bit more beefy in the shoulder than is actual. Now this leg has a kind of like so. This one is, and that one is. Oh boy, she's really. You can tell she walks a lot because she has good walking posture. She's not galumphing. Bit of foreshortening here on the one leg because the eggplant shape of the sole of her shoe is coming back at us. Boy, you know what? They're looking a little Mennonite. What am I drawing wrong here? I think I've got the skirts too long. Yep. My skirts are too long. So as you draw things, you can double check your positions and Don't erase a line you don't want until you have the line you do want. Okay. Still, I believe I'm getting her a little bit more neck. It looks like her sunglasses were up on her forehead there. Get a need to clean that area out because it's going to be white. This I don't need to worry about so much because it's going to be dark. Get the right hemline. Still have drawn that poor young lady's dress a little too long. Okay. The fountain, I'm gonna, bit of a figure there. The layers. I may, let's see, might use a ruler for some straight lines on the buildings. Let's go back to oh, too high. I'll make those fairly light. The tiny figures in the background, those are going to be well, I'm not going to, I'll show you what I'm going to do with those columns. The positioning of the, whatever these, they're a statuary of some sort. All on the top, little figurines. Almost stuff that's best painted, maybe. Now, some helpful items. Oops, that bit coming down the stairs here. Grassy area almost to here. Oh, my stairs are wider. Okay. there are some urns. About this high. Which, if we squint at them, they really do drop into shadow. And oddly enough, well, maybe not odd, I think it's kind of cool. They weren't all the same design. And then they broke into some statues, but all of them were on some sort of similarly sized pedestals, which again are all basically in obscurity over here. Now the other figures, I am just going to indicate, now that I know where their heads are, there again, I want the diagonal for her 2 feet and the more or less flat line for her 2 feet. The shadows I'm going to paint in. So I'm going to introduce some shadows from, I believe, stage right. We'll pretend that there's people walking over there. The other figures, I'm going to suggest about where the heads are. Roughly level with. Make sure I know where it's green. What stairwell? So, yeah, there's a key figure. I got to remember to skip that urn. If you do miss some of this stuff, you know, you can go back and you can lift and or you can use a bit of gouache. So now these figures, I'm going to very generally suggest them. It's more heads and shoulders silhouettes, because if you squint, see how they all drop in. And I think the key one is maybe this girl coming in over here, whose head is a little bit just equal to, but maybe a little bit lower. Again, don't draw the heads big. If you see bell shapes, whatever shapes you think you see, we have to suggest these so that we don't steal from our 2 main characters. Now, I'm semi-confident that I can move into the painting phase here. So I'm going to use a pretty general palette. So, and as always, I'm going to go from my lights to my darks. So how do you do a thing like that? I mean, it's scary to look at. Oh my gosh, I got fountains, I got skin, I've got people, I've got stairwells, gravel, all this stuff. If you squint, the girl's shoulders and arms is roughly as light as the gravel, maybe a titch darker. This is about the same as the gravel. This is light, but it's a titch darker and it's a little bit more ochery. Sky is a bit darker. not quite as dark as the shadows or certainly the trees or the darker figures in there or the shaded areas on the building. So my first, let me see, I need to draw in. Man, I made her chunky. I need to make her a little thinner. Poor girl. Okay. So I'm going to go in with a wash of blue. I'm going to use a mop like this, faux squirrel mop. Since that's darker, I can go ahead and the blue I can go through that. That'll get painted later. I'm going to maybe some ochre or some of this Naples yellow. Get the green off of it. I have like a cad yellow light, some kind of orangey yellow, a yellow ochre. Probably use that. I have orange. I might, possibly for the flesh. Quinacridone sienna, burnt umber, cad red light, quin rose and a alizarin substitute, cad red medium. I believe a very polluted dioxazine purple, ultramarine blue. Probably going to need that for the sky, or the cerulean, either one, and a lot of water. Cobalt turquoise, might use that somewhere. Lavender, will probably use that somewhere. Prussian blue, probably up in there. Dark trees, indigo, maybe use that in the dark trees. I'm going to try to keep it a simple palette. But I'll proceed from the blue to the ochres to these, I think maybe an umber with a lot of water, burnt umber, and I'm going to try to miss her dress, which now that as I look at it, if I compare the two, it's looking kind of frumpy. I have really made her look frumpy. Yeah, that's a little less Mennonite looking. These girls aren't wrestlers, they're young ladies. Okay, here we go. Grit my teeth. Get my colors mixed up and ready to go. Umber and a lot of water. Maybe a little bit of this Naples yellow in it. The red is darker than anything. I got to skip her bag. Can't mess that up. Okay, here we go. Runny mixes, which will give us pale values. Take that right down into here to get some of those urns. They're going to be cool. Rinse that good. Get the blue out. Going to switch over to this umber Naples yellow mix, which probably, hallelujah, I probably could have just as well done yellow ochre. Again, a runny mix, and if it bleeds into the blue, so what, because that's going to be darker. And it's going to be a holy mess. We just have to grit our teeth. Now there is some coming up, some white stuff that I'm going to have to try and paint around, like maybe the fountain, those things over there. This, what I'm painting now, the stairwell, that will get darker. So I just paint this anyway. All those little figures, if there's a skip, I'll turn it into a figure. If I need a figure, those tiny figures, I will put them in with white gouache. All right, missed the this green stuff. Maybe a little bit extra water to that to get a lighter version of this in the fountain. Doesn't matter if I get into that green area. Just miss the urn, hopefully. Now, to get a little bit of difference, where I go to the sidewalk area and the gravel here, I'm going to put in a little bit of lavender, odd color, because this will turn it sort of a cement limestone kind of gray. And I am just going to hit through the darker figures. I'm going to hit through her head because it's darker. I will maybe try to go through the heads because they're darker. I will try to miss their dresses and their flesh. So that grass, the shadow, all of that is darker. Naples or burnt umber and lavender for a cement gray. And a lot of water. This is a very runny mix. You can see I tip it, it runs. So let's just bring that down. Her bag is darker. Don't hit the flesh, don't hit the white bag, John. Don't hit the red dress. Let's start putting a wee bit of something redder, orangier, warmer. The burnt sienna or burnt sienna equivalent. Flesh is darker. I do need to miss her sneakers. This girl's sneakers. Yeah, you can see it's a holy mess. A little more burnt sienna. And if it's, you notice I'm not doing the beaded wash. If I get a little bit of wobbliness or irregularity or streakiness, that'll look, I hope, a little more textured and natural. Like this fine gravel that they had to walk on. All right, what could I put in now? I could get some burnt sienna, a little more, or better still, let me wipe that out. And well, I'll just mop it out. That's why these are called mops. Squeeze it out, drink it up. If you're old enough to remember when they had string mops, You dipped them in the water and got them fully saturated. Put the water on the floor and then you wrang them out to pick the water back up. Now we have Swiffers. Okay, Cad Red Light. With a lot of water is a great flesh tone. So, Caucasian flesh tone. Try not to hit her. It doesn't matter if I get her handbag, but I'm going to try to avoid her dress. This girl too, same stuff. There's going to be a shadow over here, so if it bleeds a little bit into the shadow area, that's all right. Now, let's load on a little bit more of that, and maybe a little bit of the quinacridone rose. And get her dress. Try to miss the strap to the... And this is the lighter tones in the dress, not the every color. There will be darker applications of reds. And going into her legs, because Cad Red makes a nice flesh tone. I'll even get it in her hair just to keep it. And if it bleeds out to the side a little bit, that's okay, because we've got a dark, we're going to be able to frame that shape and make it more specific with the shadow color. Now this girl's dress, I'm rinsing the brush very well. I'm going to go back to the sky color and put a little more water in it. Maybe I'll go turquoisey. No, it is a kind of a purpley. I'm just going to pick, it doesn't matter if I get into the bag, that's going to be a darker brown. Oh, and then back to my Cad Red light flesh color. And I'm go careful not to get the sneakers. This girl has dark shoes. Okay, this I'm pretty sure I need to dry. Well, I can see already I'm going to want a little darker red. Cad Red light on her calves. Her too. Alrighty. Holy mess stage. We're going to dry it. Cover your ears. How about some starting towards medium value colors? So I'm going to go to a smaller brush, maybe the Oriental, or yeah, that's what I'll use. I'm going to get the color of the darker color of the steps. So I'm going to take some of this blue and, oh, look at that. What's that? Sheesh. Leave that alone. We'll use that in here somewhere. That's the fawn that's in the pot, or the fry pan. Going to get a little bit of burnt umber. And again, the lavender, but we're going to go with more paint, less water than before. So this is slower moving paint. Oh, let me turn it this way so you can see. Ooh, there goes. Best laid plans, right? Mop it up. Get some lavender in there. A little darker than what we used for here or there. Now for these steps. Do a tester over here. Looks okay. Might put a little more lavender in it as I go left to right. Maybe modify the amount of water too sometimes. So it's there. A lot of people get foot traffic on that, and technically it ought to look like it's irregular. And painting around the fountain there. Trying to skip some of those statuary. I got a really funny photo up there. There was a Oriental woman who was standing up there looking off somewhere, and there's a statue of Neptune or Zeus or something, and it looked like he was checking her out. It was funny. So putting a little bit of ultramarine blue. Ooh, that's too much ultramarine blue. Get rid of that. Rinse, blot, mop it up. Rinse. Well, you know, I could have kept that. Darn it. Lavender, ultramarine, burnt umber. Even more. I'm going to try to get some bit of color into these urns and statuary that was hiding back in there. I don't have to be too... I'm working on this area over here. And I can overshoot it a bit because the cast shadows of the figures and the colonnade is all darker. So we're using negative painting. I'm going to be finding all that. Okay, now what can we do? We can begin to address the green back there. So we'll get into this that was probably left over from last week. So I think there's some indigo and maybe some yellow ochre. This needs to, well, I'm going to use a little bit of Prussian and some yellow ochre. This needs to be a obvious green, a darkish green. Not as dark as that green. This is something we want to do, is we always want to compare these greens. We don't want to look right into them by themselves. We want to see this close one and that far one, or maybe the three of these together. So we can say all of them are darker than these colors that we've just been putting in. Hi, Kim. But of the three, this is the darkest. That's the medium, and that's the lighter one. This one's more yellowish. This one's a blackish green, and this is a kind of a bluish green. So let's put a little bit of ultramarine in that, and some yellow ochre. Again, we don't want it to be something that is real strident and strong. once more into the breech. Nice thing here is that if I leave a little skip, I can pass it off, maybe, as a figure further up the... And there's some, it was the craziest little fountain. All these weird gold turtles. Who knows what. Let's modify it a little bit. Let's put a little bit more yellow ochre in it as we go to the right. Well, no, let's put a little more blue in it as we go to the right, because it looks like it's getting shade. The light is coming from the upper right. And I'm not out for a photographic rendering of this. I'm trying to get a kind of an impression of the hot day that it was. A little bit of grass sneaking down here. Okay, now to that, the brighter yellow, the cad yellow light, maybe some yellow ochre, more yellows, and a wee bit of water so that I'm lighter and yellower than what I've just painted for this grassy area here. So yeah, the figure is darker. It doesn't matter if I go through that figure too much. Is there any of that showing elsewhere? I don't really see it. There were some conically shaped some sort of arborvitae, or I think they're called, or something like that. Anyway, okay. Now we're going to do our, even though I technically should be continuing with the well, yeah, I'm going to continue with the medium colors. That's what I should be doing. Get that dark later. Burnt umber, lavender, and we've been using that color combination. This is the third time we've used it, but we can use it in different strengths, and we can use it in different proportions to suggest things. I'm going to make it a bit warmer by putting in some of the sienna. And then I got it too warm. So put in some of that. And a little water because I've got more pigment in. So I'm going to do these bits on the building here, the roof areas. There's like a strong solid bit goes across, and then there's a dot dash sort of. This is not the place, because when you're standing out there looking at that stuff, you will see so much detail. It's crazy. Your eye will just adjust for that distance, and you'll see every bit of those Corinthian columns or Ionic columns or whatever the heck they are. A little more water. A little more of that. Oh, maybe some yellow ochre. Or some of this more water. So judge the level of rendering of detail that you're going to do by what it looks like in the corner of your eye when you're focusing on your figure. The minute you look out here, you are going to see phenomenal amounts of detail. But that will go out of focus. So what we have to do here is figure out, well, what is it really about? The girls or the building in the distance? Obviously, it's the girls. Now I'm going to put a little bit of lavender in, more lavender. In fact, go almost to lavender, and hopefully about the same amount of water as before. And I'm going to kind of come under that. And listen, I'm going to go straight to lavender. So the bottom edge of that darker area there. Now, back to the other color with a little more brown in it. And out of that line, underneath that line, I'm going to pull some windows. I'm not going to do anything more than that with them. Maybe even pull a little of that into the stairwell. I'm going to be a bit more yeah, I know they've got muntins and stuff like that. How about the ones at the top? I'm going to put a little bit of more of the burnt umber and the ultramarine blue. Trying to discipline myself here. Go to the medium values and work towards the darks. So now here's the thing. Let's put a little ultramarine in that. Let's get them a wee bit darker. Touch it at the top. And let it work its way down. Nobody knows how many windows are up there. Louis probably did. Maybe I'll put a couple in here. A few darker marks here for whatever the heck it was that was up there. More lavender. Maybe a little cerulean or slightly darker blue with the burnt umber. Now, there was some statuary on the top of this, whatever the architects call it, but I'm going to start trying to paint the shape of the shadow coming off the columns and between the columns. A little darker still. Again, I think there's 6 columns. We're going to wind up with however many I make. So again, Louis knew, but we don't, nobody else does. Going to make some of the windows darker, some of them lighter. Keep the darker bits on the left side of these things because the light's coming in from the upper right. Let's put a little more of the warmer browns and some, say, lavender. And see if we can get these shady bits underneath the tiers of the fountain. Darken the right side of the figure on top. Where else can we? Now, okay. I'm going to put some miscellaneous dark marks here and there on the stairs. I'm going to try and pass them off as tourists. That's as detailed as I want to get with that. Keep those tourists unevenly spaced. We'll get into some darker colors a little later. Now the girl's hair. Bit of burnt umber and water for both of them for the lighter portions of the hair. But I'm going to paint the whole shape. Then, well, let's do her bag. That's about the lighter portions of her bag are sort of that. Now let's get a darker brown, which would be the burnt umber and some, say, cerulean. If that's too dark, well, I think it'll be about right. The bottom shape of the bag there, going over her shoulder. Now, indigo or ultramarine. Now we're getting to our slower moving paint. A blackish brown. So slower paint means more pigment, less water. And I'm going to try to get, while this is damp, portions of the hair that are not receiving illumination, or which is going to be the left side. This girl, red dress girl, her hair is pretty dark. Now, should be in my medium tones. Rinsing that good. Let's see if I can mop some of this. Well, not need that. I might need that. So, I'm going to mop up here. How about some cad red, either of the cad reds. Can you, yeah, I hope you can see this down here. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of alizarin. I'm going to do a test. Oh. Let's put a bit of blue in it to get it more That's too purpley. No, mop it up. It's not going to be grapefruity. It's just going to be red. I'm just going to go with red. And water. And it's going to be a concentration stronger than what I used before for the dress, which you can see faded to quite a pink. And I actually have no idea what it looks like on your device or your whatever you're viewing this on. But I'm going to start with, I'm rinsing the brush. It's a damp brush. I'm going to put a little water where I want to start the colors and then go into the color so that I get a soft edge. So I'm trying to indicate like her shoulder blade there, going down to the waistband where we actually get kind of alizarin-ish colored. Left side of her sleeve. Yeah. Coming down on her hip. Now, I need to get a soft edge there, so I blotted the brush. There are some folds in the cloth. And then the dark side, or the shadowed side, underneath the bag, that's a hard shadow between these straps. And there's bluishness to it, yeah. It's purple. This part is purplish. Probably should be using a smaller brush here. So the bag is casting a shadow on her dress. And I could probably have done that better. That connects with that, doesn't it? If I need a softer edge, I rinse, squeeze, and bring water to it. I can see putting some burnt sienna with that. Flesh is going to need to be on her shadowed side of her arm and underneath her hairline there. This girl too, she is. So I'm trying to work on the, still the medium tones here. Let's get some of that flesh tone down her leg. Left side of her leg, almost all of her right leg. Almost all of her arm over here and hand. Now parts of these are just a little too hard-edged for what I want, so I'm I'm going to rinse, blot, and soften. Hello, Daniel, new friends. So I'm dampening the edge near that. There's going to need to be a cast shadow from her hair on her body there. I even think I'm going to need to go a little darker in places. Okay, now the same thing we did with the red dress, I'm going to need to do with the blue dress. So let me mop some of this out. And just get some lavender or some ultramarine. Cast shadow across here. Darker right about there. Okay. Now let's get into our figures in there. For starters, I'm just going to take that lavender, mix it into this dark, well, let's just get some darker, murkier, bluer toned colors. So burnt umber, blue, lavender, a little more, say, I don't know, turquoise, cerulean. I want a cool but not vibrant dark. If we squint, we see it needs to be about as dark as that, almost as dark as that. Now in between here, we've got figures that are not going to be very fleshed out in terms of their shapes. Just silhouettes. I'm going to find the heads first. Try to space them too close together, one further away. Heads at about the same level, but if you want to indicate a person is closer, make the body longer and the head larger. Not the same as well, okay. So, and I'm going to be using this nondescript cool dark to frame my important figures. A little more blue in this as I get down to the cerulean and ultramarine, a bit of water. Because what we're going to do now really is paint the shadow out of their feet. A little more burnt umber, burnt sienna. A little more water, okay. More blue. More blue, more water. Notice I'm trying to hit the big area first before I come in here and refine the shape. And before you do this, you want to make sure that everything that you painted in here is dry. So hopefully you'll begin to see our image appear. Oops, low battery. Close. How'd that happen? I've been talking too much, that's why. Going too long. Now, notice I've chosen stopping points here, before trying to do the whole thing. So I'm going to mop out some of this stuff before I come back over here and attempt this area. So go up, get my figures, frame my key figures, mix up more John, ultramarine, burn umber, more burn umber, trying hard to clump my figures irregularly. Heads in about the same places. But bodies bigger where they are closer to us. Now I may go into this with some of this and pick out parts of this statuary or whatever the heck it is, pots, ultramarine, burn umber. See, at this point, I'm going to see if I can get some of the broken shadow. It comes through there. And this is because of the trees start here. The edge, the foreground edge of the trees is somewhat broken. I'm going to suggest that there's a person or something casting a shadow over here. Maybe a tree, who knows. Now the girls are casting a shadow. I'm going to make it a little bit redder. And when we put that, okay, the shoe. As this is starting, I'm watching this area here to see that, if it's the glisten is going off. And up here where I painted more, not quite as recently, I can touch in more and I can suggest a figure that's a little closer to us, but is not going to be, how should I say, as prominent. As our two girls. Do want to connect them to the ground. I need to get a kind of brownish blue to create the line there. Looks like, doggone it, I could have gone darker with the shadow on her bag. Here as well. Okay. And this is where hopefully it'll all come into focus. The dark green. Dark green, we need dark components. Indigo or Prussian. Yellow ochre. Let's get a little more, let's get some bright yellow in it. There's ever so slight indication of more than one tone in there. Really dirtying up my yellow. So I'm going to put in that first. And then I'm going to touch in some darker for the really, really dark bits. So as the brush begins to exhaust, run out of paint, I'm going to use that to create the broken edge where the leaves are. And in between here, in between the statuary and the urns and stuff, there are some darks there. Now, for that ultra dark, ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin, purplish, green. Wow, I think I'm gonna need something real. This is stiff paint. I mean, that will not move at all. Probably even suggest a few more figures in there. Try to shape those urns a little more carefully. Again, we're negatively painting. Alrighty, now, where else can I go? Well, I'm waiting for that to dry. I'm just going to get some of this miscellaneous stuff with a lot of water, this reddish stuff. Thank you, Jane. In the foreground here, I'm going to splatter a little, smear it, get some texture. Keep more of it down towards the front. Notice that I'm pointing the brush this way. What else could I do? Oh, thank you, Jane. Yeah, I could have gone darker with her flesh. Let's get some burnt sienna in that. Hers too. Could have gone a little darker in the dress, I think. Clothing is hard to judge for me. Okay, let's see. This is dark business. We can make some more figures back here because they've dried. There are some lovely little shadows being cast by people within that area there. I'm going to darken this area where their feet are coming down. Now let's get a tiny brush. This will be it. Let's get some strong colors like blues. Suggest some maybe reds here and there. Maybe some white. Well, before I do that, I'm going to, with an umberish sienna, neutral, darkish neutral, I'm going to get a little more at the main entrance there. I don't know whether they consider that the back door or the front door. We'll never know. Okay, last item. Stick the white right in the tube there, put some figures there, there. There you could. Bit of lavender, a bit of white. Catch a highlight on the top of some people's shirt front. Just a bit more of that unusual statuary here and there. Let's detape and see. So I hope that the point, I am trying to learn figures. So look for big shapes. Oh, you know what, doggone. There are some shadows on her bag as well. see. You're very welcome, James. The main thing is, rather than drawing a blind contour on your figures, now I can start to see things that I didn't get right. Flesh needs to be darker. Try to find a rectangle that they fit in. The proportions, remember that the general level of the heads, even though people have different heights and stuff, will just about come out to your eye level. Things like that. Look for, if you can find, shapes that help you. Look for, to get the posture of the figure, a line through them, whether it's vertical or starting to lean. Things like that that will help you out to get a sense of somebody moving. Did not get this here dark enough, and that's too dark, maybe. I think that looks a little sunnier. I have a tendency to misjudge Cad Red because it dries quite a bit lighter than what it looks like when you put it on. Same thing with this lavender. Okay, last piece of tape, but yeah, a lot of junk, but that's the problem with drawing groups of people, is you got groups of people. So look for situations where you can feature the close ones, and as you go back, progressively be less detailed with the ones going back there, because I mean, certainly as you look down that area, you will see tons and tons and tons of faces. I mean, you'll make out people you know and that kind of thing. All of that can be will throw you off, I think. You have to maintain a primary focus, which in this case is supposed to be these two girls here. Didn't get her strap. Before you go into crazy details, work it out like you always do. Work from the lights to the mediums to the darks. The usual sequence, and try and plan those. Squint so that you see anything that's in shadow. See how they tie together. Let's see, what else? Important thing, heads will be just about in the same place. Feet will be in different positions. Closer figures, their feet will be further down. Farther away they get, further up the feet go. Smaller the heads get. So simple things if you watch for them. And hopefully you enjoyed that. I am learning more and more about drawing figures. It's one of those things you got to draw a heck of a lot of them. And then they just get a little easier to do, I think. And I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I'll probably get too carried away. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to work up another type of figure next week. A little more involved. I think we'll maybe actually even go into something like a head. I think it'd be fun to do a head. Well, this is sort of previewing things. I'm looking at some Andrew Weiss. I'm thinking of something along these lines. So, thank you, Judy. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Vicki. I'll see you all guys next week, and stay safe, stay sane, and peace out.